When Trump stood before cameras and declared, "This is how you deal with enemies," the world thought it was another piece of campaign rhetoric. Iran just learned it was not. What happened in the skies over the Islamic Republic in recent weeks represents more than a military strike. It marks the emergence of a doctrine that replaces decades of measured escalation with overwhelming technological dominance delivered without warning. The question is not whether America can project power across thousands of miles. That question was answered long ago. The real question is what happens when that power is unleashed with total commitment and zero diplomatic cushioning. Iran found out the hard way. The target was the Shahid-Shahrazadeh industrial complex located in Kashan, approximately 90 miles from Tehran. This was not some remote outpost in a forgotten desert. This facility sat under the complete umbrella of the capital's layered air defense systems, protected by Russian-made S-300 batteries and integrated early warning networks. It was considered untouchable. Within minutes, 7 massive bombs turned it into a smoking crater. The installation was not just another production line. It housed the core of Iran's ballistic missile development program, operated by the Aviation Industry Organization, and serving as the backbone of the Revolutionary Guard's advanced rocket capabilities. High-security laboratories developed solid fuel technology. Specialized workshops processed composite materials for aerodynamic structures. Clean rooms calibrated precision gyroscopes for guidance systems. This was a research and development hub, not just assembly lines. When it disappeared, Iran lost not only current production capacity but decades of accumulated engineering knowledge that cannot be replaced by simply pouring concrete and buying new machines. The attack originated from bomber formations that never crossed into Iranian airspace. B-52H Stratofortress aircraft, flying from either Royal Air Force Fairford in the United Kingdom or Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, covered approximately 2,600 miles over 10 to 12 uninterrupted hours. Multiple mid-air refueling operations with KC-135 and KC-46 tankers kept them airborne. Each bomber carried up to 20 AGM-158 JSSM-ER cruise missiles. 4 bombers meant a potential 80 missiles converging on Iranian territory. These are not ordinary projectiles. Each JSSM-ER has a range of 575 miles, flies with a low radar cross-section, making detection extremely difficult, navigates at low altitude using terrain scanning technology, and delivers a 990-pound penetrating warhead guided to terminal impact by infrared seekers. Accompanying the missiles were GBU-31 JDAM bombs, 2,000-pound GPS and inertial-guided munitions designed to punch through reinforced concrete. The bombers launched from 560 to 620 miles away, turned around, and flew home. Iran's air defenses never got a clean shot. The destruction of Shahrazadeh was not accidental overkill. It was surgical annihilation of Iran's ability to produce the long-range missiles that arm Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militias across Iraq and Syria. Without this facility, the supply chain feeding Tehran's proxy network across the Middle East is severed at the source. Hezbollah now rations its existing stockpile like a treasure that cannot be replenished. The Houthis, who have been launching ballistic missiles at commercial shipping in the Red Sea, suddenly face the reality that new missiles are not coming. Iraqi militias that relied on Iranian technical support for their most sophisticated attacks are cut off. Trump can point to maritime security improvements within weeks and claim vindication. The facility also represented symbolic power. It was proof that Iran could develop indigenous advanced weapons systems without Western technology. Its destruction is a humiliation that propaganda cannot spin away when satellite images show the entire complex reduced to rubble. The operation demonstrated what total technological asymmetry looks like in practice. The first wave consisted of EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft and F-35A stealth fighters. Their mission was not to destroy but to blind. Growlers pumped massive clouds of jamming signals into Iranian radar frequencies. S-300 systems designed to track dozens of targets simultaneously saw everything and nothing. Operators watched screens filled with phantom contacts while losing the ability to lock onto real threats within seconds. F-35s exploited the chaos to create invisible corridors through Iranian airspace. By the time the second wave arrived, the environment was so saturated with electronic interference that the real threat was already locked onto targets before Iranian commanders understood they were under attack. The JSM-ER missiles entered this chaos flying low, hugging terrain, using the natural radar shadows created by the Zagros and Alborz mountain ranges. These missiles do not fly straight lines. They weave through valleys like ghosts, exploiting every geographic feature to stay beneath detection thresholds. When they finally climbed for terminal attack, it was too late for interception. The warheads did not just explode on impact. Penetrating munitions pierced reinforced concrete roofs and detonated inside structures. Internal pressure spiked to extraordinary levels. Buildings were shredded from the inside out. Machinery, molds, chemical stores, everything became lethal shrapnel that ripped through adjacent structures in a domino effect. Videos leaked by civilians showed secondary explosions that continued for hours as rocket fuel and stored chemicals turned the complex into a self-destructive inferno. Production lines that took years to build and calibrate were reduced to twisted metal. The capacity to manufacture advanced guidance systems vanished. The ability to produce rocket bodies was annihilated. What remained was a smoldering junk pile that will take decades to rebuild, assuming Iran even has the institutional knowledge left after losing the engineers and technicians who worked there. For the population living near Tehran, the explosions were visible and audible. This was not some distant border skirmish. This was fire and destruction 90 miles from the capital, under skies supposedly protected by the most advanced air defenses Iran could deploy. Official rhetoric about an impenetrable shield collapsed in real time. Images of the burning facility spread across Telegram channels faster than state media could construct alternative narratives. The psychological impact is deeper than physical damage. If the government could not protect a critical military installation practically within sight of Tehran, what can it actually defend? That question is now circulating through Iranian society, creating an atmosphere of insecurity that no propaganda campaign can fully suppress. Among elites, the failure raises dangerous questions. The Revolutionary Guard's credibility as protector of the regime is damaged. Moderates who warned against provoking external powers now have ammunition in internal debates. The risk is not immediate collapse but slow fracturing of the consensus that holds the system together. The strike's impact radiates outward through Tehran's network of regional proxies. Hezbollah in southern Lebanon has spent years building an arsenal of precision-guided missiles supplied and maintained by Iran. That pipeline is now broken. Existing stockpiles become finite resources that must be conserved rather than expended freely. Operational tempo decreases. The Houthis in Yemen, who turned the Red Sea into a harassment zone for international shipping, lose their technical backbone. Attacks continue using existing inventory, but the sustainable long-term threat is diminished. Iraqi militias that coordinated with Iranian advisors for their most effective operations now operate in a new reality where resupply and technical support are uncertain. Each proxy must recalculate its strategic position, knowing the patron can no longer guarantee material support at previous levels. This does not end proxy operations, but it forces a shift from confident escalation to cautious conservation of resources. That shift creates breathing room for American and allied forces operating in the region. Moscow is watching this unfold with intense interest. The S-300 systems that failed so completely in Iran are Russian-designed and Russian-sold. Their humiliation is a marketing disaster and a strategic warning. If American electronic warfare can neutralize S-300 batteries this effectively, what does that mean for Russian air defenses protecting assets in Syria, Crimea, or the Russian heartland itself? Military strategists in Moscow are dissecting every detail of this operation, identifying vulnerabilities in architectures they assumed were robust. This forces a recalibration of confidence in systems that underpin Russian defensive planning. Beijing is conducting similar analysis with even more urgency. Chinese military planners are modeling scenarios in the Pacific where American bombers launch from Guam or the Philippines without entering contested airspace. Taiwan sits roughly 750 miles from potential launch points. The South China Sea, which China treats as a defensive buffer, offers no protection against weapons that can be fired from beyond the horizon. The technological gap demonstrated against Iran accelerates Chinese investment in counter-stealth technology, electronic warfare capabilities, and their own long-range strike systems. Every revelation of American capability creates pressure to close gaps that may be widening rather than narrowing. Iran cannot respond conventionally. That fact is now proven beyond debate. Instead, Tehran shifts the battlefield to domains where asymmetry works in its favor. Within hours of the strikes, reports emerged of attacks on commercial tankers transiting the Persian Gulf. Naval drones and contact mines suddenly make one of the world's critical energy choke points dangerous. This is classic asymmetric escalation. If Iran cannot defend its airspace, it can threaten the 21% of global petroleum that flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Even without closing the strait entirely, the threat is enough to spike insurance premiums 300% and send oil prices climbing 15 to 18% within days. This creates a paradox for American strategy. Military dominance is total, but that dominance does not control the chaos Iran can generate in global energy markets. Trump wins the military engagement decisively and then faces angry voters upset about expensive gasoline. The economic weapon is cruder than precision missiles, but it hits targets that military power cannot defend. The phrase total domination is not about territorial conquest. No American soldiers occupied Iranian soil. It is about controlling the narrative and the perception of inevitability. It is about demonstrating a technological gap so vast that meaningful resistance is impossible. Trump is not subtle about the message. This is how you deal with enemies translates clearly to allies and adversaries alike. Allies hear reassurance that American power remains committed and overwhelming. Adversaries hear a warning that provocations will be met with disproportionate force delivered at a time and place of American choosing. This is a deliberate break from decades of graduated escalation doctrine. The old playbook involved warnings, ultimatums, incremental pressure, and force as a last resort. The new approach is stark. Red lines exist, and crossing them triggers immediate maximum force. There is no negotiation period. There is no building international coalitions. There is identification of the problem and elimination of the problem using every available technological advantage. Whether this approach prevents larger wars or guarantees them is the question historians will debate for decades. The long-term consequences extend beyond smoking ruins in Kashan. Iran is forced to recalibrate its entire strategic posture. The infrastructure of deterrence built over decades collapsed in a single night. The choice now is whether to escalate asymmetrically and risk further devastating strikes, attempt negotiation from a position of profound weakness, or pursue accelerated development of a nuclear deterrent as the only credible counter to American conventional superiority. Every option validates aspects of Trump's approach. Escalation proves the threat was real and the strike justified. Negotiation proves that overwhelming force produces diplomatic results. Nuclear pursuit proves the wisdom of striking before that capability matures. Tehran is in a trap where every move confirms the logic of the attack. Meanwhile, American military planners operate in an environment where Iranian airspace is increasingly permeable. Each successful strike degrades defenses further, making subsequent operations even lower risk. This creates a cycle where dominance reinforces itself, and the gap between capabilities widens rather than closes. The world is now navigating a reality where distance no longer provides security and defensive systems offer uncertain protection against sufficiently advanced offensive platforms. Geography, which shaped military strategy for millennia, has been rendered nearly irrelevant by mid-air refueling, intelligent routing, and precision weapons with ranges measured in hundreds of miles. The concept of a safe zone deep inside national borders is obsolete when bombers can launch from international airspace and strike with impunity. This is not theoretical. It just happened. The psychological fracture this creates goes beyond Iran. Every nation that relied on geography and air defenses as primary security guarantees must reconsider fundamental assumptions. Fortifications that seemed impregnable yesterday are targets today. The castles are irrelevant when attackers do not need to breach walls to deliver devastating firepower inside. This forces a global recalibration of defense spending, alliance structures, and strategic calculations about what can and cannot be protected. Trump declared total domination and then proved the capability to deliver it. The question that remains unanswered is whether this demonstration of overwhelming force prevents future conflicts or ignites a more dangerous and unpredictable phase of global instability. Iran's military spine is broken, but the country retains the ability to spread chaos across energy markets and activate proxy forces in multiple theaters simultaneously. The paradox is complete. Iran is losing the war but expanding the game, and that expansion may ultimately determine outcomes more than any single military victory. The situation is clearer than it was before the strike, but it is also far more dangerous. Conventional military dominance is unquestionable, yet the forms of chaos that dominance can unleash remain beyond the reach of precision weapons and electronic warfare. The doctrine has been demonstrated, the enemy has been punished, and the world is left to wonder whether this operation stopped Iran or whether it triggered the beginning of something far larger and far less controllable than anyone intended.